Hello and welcome to another exciting edition of Diaspora Network, the program where we celebrate Nigerians making remarkable strides around the world. I'm Teniola Uyitayo. On today's program, we spotlight innovation with purpose as we meet Daniel Solomon, a Nigerian entrepreneur using technology to tackle food waste, reduce costs, and drive sustainability across the Middle East and North Africa. But before we hear from him, let's take a look at what's making headlines across the global Nigerian community.
Member, just like all of you.
A trustee of the Rotary Foundation, Ijeoma Pearl Okoro, has been named the recipient of the 2026 Martin Luther King Legacy Award for Global Leadership and Humanitarian Impact, recognizing her service, leadership, and contribution to global development. The honor was announced as part of the 34th International Salute to the Life and Legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., held in Washington, D.C. And also in the United States, Nigerian medical doctor Dr. Festus Olusheye Babarinde has been selected for the 2025 Martin Luther King Jr. Award for Community Service at Johns Hopkins. Organizers say the recognition reflects a long record of volunteerism and service, from community health work in Nigeria to mentoring and support for doctors preparing for professional exams abroad. Nigerian-born researcher Temitope Adeniyi has been recognized on UNESCO's Quantum 100 list for the International Year of Quantum Science and Technology. She's the only Nigerian on the list and is being celebrated for work spanning quantum computing and education, including research linked to quantum sensors aimed at detecting disease earlier. And in film, British-Nigerian actress Wunmi Mosaku has earned a BAFTA nomination for Best Supporting Actress for her role in Ryan Coogler's Sinners. It comes just days after she received an Oscar nomination in the same category for the same film. Mosaku, who moved from Zaria to Manchester with her parents when she was 1 year old, rose to prominence in 2009 after starring in a BBC Two show. Since then, she has built a strong career, appearing in major productions, including the hit BBC series Luther, alongside Idris Elba. And that's your Diaspora News Wrap from London.
And now a quick update from the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, NIDCOM, as it continues to engage Nigerians living abroad and strengthen connections back home.
Chairperson of the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, Mrs. Abike Dabiri-Erewa, received an African-American musician, Jeffery Daniels, in her office in Abuja. Mr. Daniels, who is a member of the legendary Shalama Music Band, urged Africans in diaspora to follow his example and connect to the motherland by visiting regularly.
There are, hard times everywhere. Just America's having a very hard time now. Europe is having a hard time. France is having a hard time. But if we take these things and we come together and we build a system to overcome these things, I say it's like having a luxury car. If I had a Rolls Royce or a Bugatti or something like that, a very expensive car, and I had a little accident and had a dent in it, I wouldn't throw the car away because there's a dent. I will fix that dent and enjoy that luxury car. That's what Nigeria is, that luxury vehicle. All we got to do is fix those dents, and we've got a luxury vehicle. The main thing that needs to be done is we have to come together with our African mindset. We have to look out for each other. We have to uplift each other. Things are going to get very tumultuous now because the Western world is falling, and it's time for us to stand up. Those of you who want to come home, come on home. Those of you who want to just make that trip for the door of no return and then do that U-turn and come back through the door of return, which is an amazing outlet they have down in Badagry, courtesy of our honorable lady here. And it's just an amazing experience. I did it, and it was just so emotional. I mean, I was driven to tears just experiencing this thing that I knew our ancestors had experienced. And for us to have the opportunity to bring it back again, you will love it. It's going to be the most, I think, gratifying time of your life just to experience that,
According to Mrs. Dabiri Erewa, the return of the American R&B singer and dancer is a symbolic homecoming. She reaffirms NIDCOM's commitment to leveraging culture, creativity, and diaspora engagement as a strategic tool for national development and global rebranding. The Nigerians and Diaspora Commission also hosted a Cape Verdean delegation in Abuja on a strategic study visit to strengthen cooperation in diaspora engagement, migration management, and development. The NIDCOM chairman, who was represented by the secretary to the commission, Dr. Sule Yakubu Bassi, emphasized the role of structured diaspora engagement in national development, urging African countries to prioritize their citizens in the diaspora. He outlines NIDCOM's mandate and Nigeria's diaspora framework, highlighting the national diaspora policy as the guiding tool for engagement, investment, and participation. Both parties reaffirmed their commitment to continued collaboration and the exchange of best practices. The delegation comprised representatives from Cape Verde's migrant management institutions and the National Observatory on Trafficking in Persons.
Our special report this week spotlights Nigerian-owned businesses in the diaspora that are combining profit with purpose. From technology and sustainability to finance, fashion and food, these entrepreneurs are solving real-world problems while building wealth and long-term value.
Nigeria's entrepreneurial spirit continues to make waves far beyond its borders. Across Europe, North America, and the Middle East, Nigerian-owned businesses in the diaspora are not only projecting the country's culture and ingenuity globally, but also building profitable enterprises in the process. From food exports to sustainable grocery platforms, these businesses are putting the country on the global map while enriching themselves and their communities. In cities like London, Dubai, Toronto, and New York, Nigerian-owned diaspora businesses are redefining how African food and produce reach international markets. With millions of Nigerians living overseas and a growing global appetite for African cuisine, demand continues to rise and the numbers tell a compelling story. Many of these businesses are generating millions of dollars annually, reinvesting in expansion, logistics, and technology, while securing personal wealth for their founders. For Nigeria, the impact goes beyond foreign exchange. These success stories inspire young entrepreneurs at home, proving that Nigerian ideas can compete and win on the global stage.
Now to our guest, Daniel Solomon is an entrepreneur, innovator, and the founder of Hero Go, a Middle East and North Africa-based food tech startup tackling food waste while helping consumers and businesses cut costs.
Daniel Solomon is an entrepreneur, innovator, and the founder of Hero Go, a Dubai-based food tech startup committed to sustainable grocery delivery and reducing food waste across the United Arab Emirates. He hails from Kwara State in north-central Nigeria and was born and raised in Jos Plateau State, where he had a memorable childhood that helped shape his journey.
So it was a normal functioning home. There's a mom, there's a dad, and everything was, fine in the initial stages of growing up, because kids, you don't really notice the stuff, right? My dad is always there, but my mom works a lot. And, as we start growing up, we ask a lot of questions. When, my dad was an engineer, I think by training, but is also a prince, so in where he's from. So there's a little bit of misconnection between, being, Omoba, in Nigeria. And my mom she's still with us, and awesome mom. She raised a family of 7, so she raised us all. And all I've known her to do was business, right? She was she's a business woman. And what I figured out is, she started with I'm gonna be a nurse, and then I'm gonna work, in a pharmacy. Then I'm gonna own my pharmacy. But no, you know what? Because I have kids now, and I'm doing, business. I'm just gonna, be able to sell anything that basically provides for the family. So we grew up knowing that part of life where, our mom, just does business, and one of the stories that she always told us is, anyone can start a business, but it's always good you find something that is yours. So she used to supply to, multiple companies in Nigeria, in Jos. So NASCO used to produce. That was like, and that's one part that I think as kids we really love, because NASCO used to produce like biscuits, and when she goes to work, she comes back with a lot of like different biscuits, and as kids we're really, different snacks. We're really happy with that, and I think those early on, we love that about somebody who is entrepreneur, in spirit, and that's one of the things that I think we always say she can talk to anybody. So growing up, it's like, as kids, I guess I get really mad. It's like she would just say hi to anybody. But, I could see why, as I got, older. And that connected to, me, my interests. So, for instance, when I was in school, in primary school, I could remember when, you have your food that we take to school, I sell them, just to get, some money. And so I could buy other snack with it, because maybe my lunch wasn't that interesting. And, we do all of those stuff. And I think that's where I picked up trade from. And fast forward to, I think, even my later interests, as I became more of a teenager, I've always wanted to be in business, right? Like, I've always tried to sell something. In fact, I had friends who we used to say to ourselves, people just ask you, can you supply? You don't even know what it is. You just say yes. And as you know, every young Nigerian, as you start trying to make, money, but I think I picked that up, from my mom. I started thinking I needed to do something beyond me, beyond, the fame, beyond trying to get money for myself. And this is when I think my interests, again, started picking up into, what does that look like? What does that look like fixing the things around me that I don't really like? I've always loved computers. So, this is as somebody who likes to fix things and break things. One of the things I used to do early was try to build a computer myself. So I went back into doing that. And then that's when I thought, maybe this could be a thing. So I went on to, I finished at Middlesex University. So I studied information technology. And so here in Dubai. And that's why I did my last year here in Dubai. And I thought, this is going to be a career, being able to, take what I love, which is, computers, being able to program. And then I got my first job. I started working with publicists and, as a project manager. And I was fortunate enough to have different digital projects that I project managed. And life was fun. And, when you start doing like your official, job in a different market, in a different country, you're like, yeah, this is it, right? And I guess as time passed by, I was enjoying what I did, met new interesting people, life started here. But I think one thing I started seeing was, like everybody else, 9 to 5, we go to work and then we close at 6, then we go home, we turn on Netflix, and we watch TV, and it didn't sit well with me. And I said, what else can I do with my time? So I signed up for my MBA. So I started doing my MBA with Liverpool, University of Liverpool. So I was still working. And the whole point was just making sure that, my time was used effectively, right? And fast forward, I guess, 3 years later, I started looking for opportunities. And I stumbled on an opportunity for me to, help another startup, build their software. So I joined them as a project director, and we were using, Unity game engine to create apps till I got another opportunity, and the opportunity led me into creating my first company. So I created my first company, and I had multiple partners, and we created software for enterprise businesses.
Driven by a passion for using technology to solve environmental and societal challenges, Daniel is on a mission to promote sustainable practices among consumers and industry stakeholders, with a strong focus on saving food, saving money, and protecting the planet. His vision centers on building technology solutions that create real, positive impact for both people and the environment. Before founding HeroGo, Daniel launched Hero, an enterprise technology company that served global brands including Toyota, Lexus, and PwC. His career also includes leadership experience at major technology firms, notably Publicis Sapient. He holds an MBA from the University of Liverpool and a Bachelor of Science in Information Technology from Middlesex University.
We January hit. We started expanding our business. We had clients in Saudi Arabia, so I was flying in and out. And in March, I was supposed to be in London, and we were having a chat. What was going on? And we didn't really know what was going on. So I think there was something on the news that stated, there's something called COVID, happened. And I think my life partner, my girlfriend, she was like, yeah, I'm stuck in Italy, and I can't, I'm trying to leave back to London. And of course, then the lockdown happened, and then we had May. So from May, I was lucky enough to be able to to go on the repatriation flight to London. So we stayed the whole of the lockdown in 2020 in London. So it gave me time to also reflect. And in that reflection, it's also connecting back to a lot that I've always had a thought about. So going back to, I think, January of 2021, we all, brunching, having a great time. And one of the things that we saw, or I saw, was, there's a lot of surplus food, being wasted in Dubai, which a lot has changed, and with the policies. As you know, the UAE does a lot of awesome work in making sure that they're in the forefront of, every, issue that we basically see. So it was more like in brunches, there's a lot of waste. And one of the questions that came to mind is, what do you do with this food? And they said, once the food has been displayed for 3 hours, we cannot, pack them and people cannot eat it. So I was like, you mean you work here, you don't take this home? And they're like, no, we don't take it, home because we're not allowed. So of course it was just a passing thought. And I think I was doing a consulting work for one of my clients, and one of the use case in the landscape assessment was in the retail client was also waste, surplus waste. And it was not just cooked food now, it's also product that has near expiration. And then I kept thinking, if I take all this nice rice that maybe the dates will just expire soon, and I send them back to people in Nigeria, packaged food, maybe they wouldn't care. And because it's good food, right? Like expiration date on your cereal, like if you open it, there's a high possibility that it's still good to eat. And that's important because I grew up knowing my grandma would tell me, if you have tomato, if the top is going off, just cut it. The rest is still good, right? So that whole concept of what we throw away didn't really sit well with me. That on the one hand, there are people who are going to bed without food. And the other hand, we have surplus food that, gets wasted. There's a power of technology to bring all of that together, especially now that we're not talking about the social issue alone. We're talking about also the environmental issue. And technology has the power to bring all of that together. So how do we make food more cheaper and affordable to people? So it's not just people eating food. It's about eating food that has a lot of nutrients. So the protein, making sure you get the right fruits, the vegetables. And, while fixing food waste, it's also a win. And that's where, the idea of Hero Go was born, using predictive model that allows, farmers, food manufacturers to be able to sell their surplus, inventory that normally they cannot sell because maybe the tomato is ugly, maybe, the mango is too big, or, you have some stuff that's too small, like, the potato is too small, or you also have like some near expired products, that they cannot sell in the supermarket. And using key expiration dates as a key variable and making sure that all these farmers are able to sell their products so they have an increase in revenue. The people who are buying it at a cheaper rate, and also is good for the planet. And that's why we say, Hero Go, save food, save money, and save the planet. So it's a triple win for everybody who is involved.
He speaks about navigating life in the United Arab Emirates and building a strong professional network as a young man.
When I came, I think, of course, when university, had a lot of fun and, trying to just, get started. I have this thing where I call it a faith drive. It's just more like, putting my head to something, having faith that it's going to happen. But I also think that there was a lot of opportunities. And of course, you hear different people who have different opinion about, Nigerians actually, getting, succeeding, abroad, not in a negative light. And I think my thought process was, regardless of where you are, if you always aspire, and that you could make a change, regardless when you wake up in the morning, you could make a change. And it does not mean that, when you create a business. I think that kind of changes a little bit of like the perspective, being kind of blind to the stereotypes that, people would keep themselves in. First of all, because I think stereotype starts with, if I'm saying that correctly, like what you believe of yourself to be. And I think, that probably helped me look at things differently. It's more, we all have, 24 hours. We all have to strive hard. We always have to have faith and, believe if you have faith or whatever it is that you believe in, and work hard. Going back to the why is make food more affordable, accessible to a lot of people. We're all blessed to be in a country where, everybody, we're all fortunate. Everybody can say at least they have meal on their plates. There's still low-income communities here, but ultimately, why I started is to make sure that, we solve for hunger. So making sure millions of people who don't have access to food, how we're able to reach out to them. So we're building a model, we're learning, and the whole goal is to be able to build a business, because when we say sustainability, first of all, as a business, we need to be sustainable. And to be sustainable means economical, social, and also we, as a company, that we're able to do the impact that we want to do. And that's why when we continue to expand, so we're now in London, with the business. And the next phase is, how do we create our impact? How do we make the impact reach people in Nigeria? How do we make sure that, low-income communities are also able to benefit from, the work that we do? Of course, we don't have all the plan yet, but the heart is always there. And we believe that, when it comes to sustainability, we should not just label it like everybody should be sustainable, but, the countries who are, contributing more to the carbon issue, should actually, contribute more. And we're seeing more people who are more aware in developed countries who are adapting, ways that they can, give back and, use less plastic. Because their challenge in life, what they worry about, a lot has been resolved. They're not thinking about, today I don't have light in my house, or, because I don't have light, my internet is not working. So they can think about, how do I make sure that there's less plastic, right? And I think that, this is the reality, in Nigeria, where we are starting in countries where people's priority is also focusing on the environmental and the social issues. And more people in Nigeria are becoming more aware, and they're joining on the journey. But it's also, how can we enable, the farmers and also the producers there to, be able to also sell their products, internationally, not just, selling in the local market, so they can get, more value for what they sell.
And that brings us to the end of this week's edition of Diaspora Network. To watch this and previous episodes celebrating Nigerians around the world, visit channelstv.com or our YouTube channel. Until next time, I'm Teniola Oyetayo. Bye for now.